Hey there, gamers. DreamcastGuy here, and today we're talking about that leaked report that people are incredibly mad about, which is that the CEO of Microsoft has admitted that he thought about shutting down Xbox. He said in a specific leaked report that we're going to go through with a fine-tooth comb, he said there were two paths before Xbox in 2021. Buy a bunch of studios like Bethesda, buy stuff like Activision Blizzard, and hope that Xbox can stay afloat, or just burn it all down, completely break it apart. Now we're going to talk about this because this report is long, it's in-depth, it's got a lot of quotes, it's talks from third-party developers to first-party people to Xbox people. It is weird to actually see that the Game Pass problem has gotten this bad, but let me explain what I'm talking about. Hi, hope you're having a good day. Like, subscribe, do that kind of thing, but let's get right into it. So this is a very in-depth report, but let's start with the bullet points that are kind of grabbing headlines. But this is the big chunk of it. CEO Satya Nadella considered winding down Xbox gaming in 2021. Now, this is a bunch of quotes we're going to be looking at from this massive report put up by Aaron Holmes over on The Information. Now, you have to pay to read this article. I don't really read paywalled stuff very much, so somebody was nice enough to repost kind of the big chunks of it. But the major question that people have kind of been trying to puzzle out for especially the last year and a half is, how is Xbox losing money? Like, actually consider that. Yeah, they got like 25 million people signed up to Game Pass, but even then, with the amount of advertising, with the amount of money of Microsoft, it's weird to think about the fact that they're still underwater. Like, Microsoft makes trillions of dollars, and Xbox, it seems to bleed cash. It seems to never be caught up. And so in a lot of these rounds of layoffs they've been doing, in fact, they just announced another round of layoffs here just in the last 30 minutes. They just announced another round of layoffs. People are asking, how is it that studios like Arcane are being shutting down? How is it that we see Xbox just firing everybody, not putting out games, and yet Microsoft is so profitable? It seems like there's a disconnect. And I think it goes beyond just console sales. Like, yeah, it's crazy to think that, honestly, the PlayStation 5 is crushing the Xbox so much, but I don't think this really comes down to hardware. In a lot of ways, I think this comes down to, honestly, the acquisitions. So a major stockholder, and we're going to look at the full context of this, said, I think a majority of the game market does not want Game Pass. This is a damning thing. So this guy who said this is a dude who has $800 million in stock for the company. So when he's saying this, he's not some console warrior. It's not some guy trying to act like Microsoft sucks. This is a dude on a yacht paying Microsoft bills, hoping it buys him a second yacht. This is some dude actually saying, okay, nobody wants Game Pass, especially not the gamers. And I know it's funny to hear that because if you listen to a lot of people that have Game Pass, it's the best deal in gaming. It's got hundreds of games. It's got new big AAA releases by Microsoft, but we're going to go more into that. I think it's interesting that a lot of people are pointing up the fact that the big problem with Xbox isn't Game Pass straight up. This isn't the fact that there's not enough to play. It's that, honestly, Xbox games, they're just not very good, you know? I keep seeing people post stuff like this, and I feel like this is such a great point. Look at the game of the year for the last 5 years. It's all PlayStation. God of War, Final Fantasy, Astrobot. There's a bunch of Nintendo games in here. We can see Spider-Man. We can see Mario. You don't hear people talk about Xbox games. Like, maybe occasionally they give best racing game for Forza or best simulation game. They give it to freaking Microsoft Flight Sim, but nobody is out there championing Xbox games, saying, yeah, it's worth $70. Yeah, I've pre-ordered it. Yeah, I'm ready for it day one. Everybody just says, try it on Game Pass if you're bored. Now, this whole thing is crazy to me because it turns out that a lot of developers don't actually trust Game Pass. This to me is insane. Several reports say that several leading game developers have turned down Microsoft's offer to put their games on Xbox Game Pass after Microsoft acquired Activision. Now, there has been some rumors circulating that apparently it seems like one of the deals that has tried to be secured is it seems like Microsoft approached Grand Theft Auto 6, Rockstar Games, and said, hey, what do we have to pay you to get this directly day one on Game Pass? And they just laughed at them and said, this game is going to make $70 billion. We're not gonna put it on Game Pass, because putting anything on Game Pass at this point, it almost kind of makes it feel cheap. I feel like this is my own gut reaction, but it does feel like a lot of people, when they see something, get heavily discounted immediately. You know, you see an Ubisoft game, it comes out, it gets decent review scores, and then it gets put on sale 3 weeks later, 6 weeks later. People go, okay, that game must suck. That game, it being offered for so cheap, that's a bad sign, not a good deal. I almost feel like the Game Pass effect has created this accidental stink where people now, if you see something getting put on Game Pass, you go, oh, they must have had incredibly low pre-order numbers. Oh, they must have been very afraid of not selling if they're willing to give it away for free, if they're willing to take the Microsoft money. Now, some indie devs have talked about the fact that used to, I don't know what they're offering today, but used to, if you were trying to put an indie game into Game Pass, a lot of times Microsoft would give you a $500,000 check, which for game dev is a significant amount. I mean, hell, to me, that's a significant amount. But the point is that if you made your game for $1 million, $500,000, that's a huge chunk of your dev costs on a platform where people don't buy a lot of games. Basically, it's a free chance to almost completely catch up and get closer to breaking even before the game is even technically out, right? But it's weirder than that. I see a lot of people basically talking about the fact that the weirdness of Xbox is the fact that they're not putting out games at the same speed, especially not the same quality. But let me actually go through the report, because the quotes in here are kind of insane. So in 2021, Microsoft's CEO said they had a choice before them. The company could either acquire a bunch of game studios to drive more subscriptions to Game Pass, or they could wind down business. Now, obviously, we know that this is the path they chose, because they bought Elder Scrolls maker Bethesda for $7 billion, and then they bought Call of Duty for $75 billion. Activision has been disappointing, says Denny Fish, a Janus Henderson Investor portfolio manager who oversees two funds that include more than $800 million in Microsoft stock as of November. I think the majority of the game market doesn't really want Game Pass, like the one Microsoft is offering, said Gus Sen, a portfolio manager at the Marquee Science and Technology Fund. Several leading game studios have resisted Microsoft's pitch that they should put their games in Game Pass in exchange for fees that Microsoft would pay. God. It's wild to just hear it spelled out. Microsoft hoped the Activision deal would attract developers to rent its Azure cloud services, but Activision wasn't using Azure prior to the deal and still rents servers from Google. So one of the talks about this is that Microsoft is really trying to pivot into 15 different directions. The idea of just doing the PlayStation tactic of buy a PS5, buy PS5 games, buy a Nintendo Switch, buy Nintendo Switch games. Microsoft, they can't just do that anymore. Nobody is buying an Xbox. In fact, it seems like, according to some leaks, they're even winding down the production of Xbox because nobody's buying them, and they don't want to have like 60 million of these bad boys sitting in a freaking warehouse for 20 years. But it sounds like they're trying to really push cloud services. They're trying to get Game Pass Play Anywhere to be more popular. They're trying to do anything it possibly takes to make at least a little bit of their money back, to get closer to breaking even, to reference the indie games for before. But it's weird to me to think about the fact that their eventual goal was to get to 100 million Game Pass subscribers. Now, currently, the rough numbers are that maybe 33 million people have Game Pass. That means that their plan is here in the next 5 years to triple the total size of Game Pass in a way that just doesn't make sense. Like, at this point, nobody's buying the Xbox console, so you're not getting Game Pass subscriptions on systems. You're trying to basically go, please, if you have a PC, please, please, please get Game Pass. Oh my God. It has to grow at a rate of 40% annually, which would be faster than its fastest rate of growth ever in the year 2020. They also removed last year from their reporting process was references to Game Pass growth, one of the metrics that was determined to be part of CEO Satya Nadella's pay package. Essentially, they can't grow Game Pass. The whole point was to buy studios, and this was the final experiment. Essentially, it's pretty obvious that the final push from this was that Satya Nadella's whole idea was, okay, can we just buy studios? Can we buy the games that people want? Can we just buy, and skyrocket the sales of Xbox Game Pass? Or is it a lost cause? Can we never catch up? Can we not actually boost the numbers, even with good games, even with good deals, even with Play Anywhere? Can we get people to subscribe to Game Pass? And it seems like the answer is no. It seems like those investors are saying, nobody actually wants Game Pass. And it's weird to think about. Because online, I feel like people do say so much positive about Game Pass. The people with Game Pass seem to be happy about it, but it's such a tiny pool. But these have just been some off-the-cuff thoughts. I'm about to have to do a 5-hour meeting right after this, so I hope you guys have a great day. Hopefully, whenever you watch this, you're chilling out and enjoying life. But I love you very much. Be sure to like the video and subscribe if you haven't already. And please keep dreaming. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.